This week, we welcome Summer Fowler, co-chair of the Leadership Board for InfoSec World Conference, to discuss the management and leadership tracks at InfoSec World 2020. In the leadership and communications section, leaders, do you have a clear vision for the post-crisis future? 3 recession scenarios and their impact on tech spend, supply chain transparency, technology, partnership, and progress, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. With over half of enterprise security budgets going towards detection and response in 2020, the challenge is investing in solutions that can migrate and scale with your business. ExtraHop helps security teams spot threats up to 95% faster and respond 60% more efficiently in hybrid and multi-cloud environments with cloud-native network detection and response. Kick the tires in the full product demo at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. The question is simple. Have any of the systems on my network been compromised? The answer is harder than it should be. Enter AI Hunter. Active Countermeasures has automated and streamlined techniques used by the best pen testers and threat hunters in the industry to create AI Hunter, a network threat hunting solution that does the first pass of a hunt for you to identify systems that are most likely to be compromised and scores the results on a scale from 0 to 100. You can then research those systems in depth with AI Hunter. Focus your valuable time on the systems that need your expertise with AI Hunter. Sign up for a personal demo today at securityweekly.com/ACM.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 170, recorded April 21st, 2020. I am your host, Matt Alderman, here in Colorado, still in lockdown mode. Joining me from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island is my first co-host, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Hey, Matt, good to be here.
Good morning. And on the lines, joining us remotely, is my second co-host, Mr. Jason Albuquerque.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Paul. Great to be here.
Welcome back, Jason.
Good to be back.
Going cloud native? See how to integrate application security in our next webcast with Signal Sciences. Learn how penetration testing reduces risk in our May webcast with Core Security, a health systems company. Register for our upcoming webcasts or virtual trainings by visiting securityweekly.com/webcasts. You can also access our on-demand library of previously recorded webcast trainings by visiting securityweekly.com/on-demand. Sorry, Paul. And each webcast earns you 1 CPE credit if you give us your ISC.
I was just going to say, the first time I read that announcement, I paused and tripped up too, because it transitions between 2 webcasts so closely. I was like, wait, what does pen testing have to do with cloud native application security design?
Right. I'm like, Signal Sciences doesn't do pen testing?
All right, I'm not alone. Okay.
All right, we got to work on that one with Sam. I did the same thing. Oh, number 2, we've officially migrated our mailing list back to our original platform, which means I have angered at least a few thousand people because they're either not getting emails or they're getting multiple emails. So I apologize. Go to securityweekly.com/subscribe and tell us what your interests are. Update your interests so you get on the right mailing list. It was such a pain dealing with all this, but I think we've got it set now, so things should be a lot cleaner going forward. But I know I need to apologize to at least a few thousand of you. All right, let's get to our guest. 4th time's the charm. Summer Fowler is the Chief Information Officer at Argo AI and an adjunct faculty member at Carnegie Mellon University. Summer was previously a technical director at Carnegie Mellon University CERT cybersecurity program, where she spent 11 years researching and developing cybersecurity risk and resilience solutions for the U.S. government and the nation's critical infrastructure. Summer, I won't go into the rest. Welcome finally to Business Security Weekly.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Just so everybody knows, this is the 4th time we tried to get Summer on between the current pandemic and internet outages. It's taken us a while to get to this point. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just that. It was, our company is also undergoing some really big activities in terms of a new deal with Volkswagen. And so that also hit us. And so, now I'm at home now, like you, quarantined in my house, but good internet today. So we're solid.
Woohoo! So before we get into the leadership and management tracks at InfoSec World, how did you get involved with the InfoSec World Conference and end up being the co-chair?
Wow, that's a great question. I started attending InfoSec World years ago, first just as an attendee, then I became a speaker and started talking about risk, cyber resilience. And as a result of just some of the speaking engagements that I had, the others on the leadership board reached out to me and said, would you be interested in being on this? I love the event. And so I really jumped at the chance because I think that it's such a fantastic forum. It's a smaller forum than what you see in some of the really big conferences that are on the West Coast or in Vegas. But I really value what I got out of the conference and wanted to help shape it into the future. And so now for 2 years, I've been on the leadership board, and it's been a lot of fun.
Probably a little challenging this year with the move from moving dates from end of March to the end of June. What did you guys have to go through at the leadership board to kind of make that transition? I'm curious, did all the talks pretty much stay in place, or did you have to find some replacements because of the time change?
So we're looking right now, for the most part, what it's looked like is that most of the talks are going to stay the same. We still have the same keynotes. People have been extremely flexible, right? And I think what we're going to see as all of the different states and companies do their return to work plan, we may have to make some adjustments at the end. But I think for right now, we're pretty solid on our main speakers. The tracks, of course, are going to remain the same. And I think you'll find that the content is going to be even more timely as we talk about coming out of a pandemic and how we manage information security, cybersecurity, and just as business leaders and as the technologists, how we work together to make sure that we are resilient. All of us have gone through a really crazy business continuity exercise. Getting together in June to talk about tips of what worked and what didn't work. It will be fresh in our minds, and some of us will still be coming out of this and working our work from home back into the return to work, return to the office in some cases. I think we're going to have a really fun group that is excited to get out. I mean, how exciting is it going to be able to end up down in Florida now, working together, talking about our experiences and learning from each other. So I'm looking at the positive side of this in that it's going to be not just another conference, it's really going to be a chance for us to talk about after action, lessons learned, and what we may need to prepare. Let's just say this pandemic has a resurgence here in the United States, not something that we're looking forward to, but something that we need to plan for. And so it's a great time for leaders and technologists to get together and talk about what we can do better should this happen again.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of pent up, I think, conference demand getting ready to unleash itself, right? And I mean, InfoSec World is going to be really one of those first, like, back to on-site conference events, followed probably pretty closely by Black Hat right after that. But, right. There's been this big window between RSA conference and InfoSec World that, people haven't been able to get together and really share and talk and be able to reflect on what we're going through. So I think this will be a great place for a lot of people to get together and share kind of their experience of what worked and what didn't work.
Absolutely. And even also just making those contacts that, we've been talking to people online. We've had an opportunity to look at the talks. So now you can really plan out what you want to see. There are some really, really great workshops before and after the main conference. And that's another opportunity for people to say, maybe I do need to look at this. Maybe I should go through one of the leadership seminars or looking at the container security. So I think that it's going to be a very, very welcome event for a lot of people.
There's a couple of things in my mind that you really can't, or it's extremely difficult to replicate virtually. And that's the opportunistic kind of, hey, let me introduce you to this person. Like, you're just chatting with people and they go, oh, you're interested in that topic. That person's researching this topic. Let me go introduce you to that person, right? And then there's I'm in a class or workshop or presentation, and I'm sitting next to someone, and you just strike up conversation, right? And then you end up collaborating with them or one of their coworkers or whatever, right?
And I also think that, being in person, you can be pretty candid, right? There are things that just naturally, when you think about cybersecurity, you don't want to be trusting of what, necessarily you're putting in writing. It's out there. It's something that's solid. Even on a video conference, what could, be recorded, or what do you know is not, happening behind the scenes. When you're in person, I think that opportunity to be more candid and to say, this is what didn't work for me. That also is such a really important part of that in-person, experience that now more than ever we're realizing is critical.
It's so true. I mean, because obviously we speak to people all the time on the show, and the in-person conversations we have at the conferences, I wish we could air. Someday there'll be a tell-all book when, statute of limitations and other things have, and we can protect people's identities, right? But the, theories about different things, they don't often want to share that on the air. And you can't blame them, right?
Right. Exactly.
No, and at this conference, I mean, it's going to be perfect timing, right? Because like you mentioned, most folks aren't going to be candid unless they're in person about any stumbling blocks or failures they may have had during this crisis, right? I mean, ultimately, I see this as a perfect opportunity for lessons learned to spread across the industry and have folks in leadership positions learn from each other, learn from mistakes, learn from missteps, learn from things that folks did well, and truly collaborate to get better.
Yeah, and I think that the return to work policies, that's going to also be something really interesting to see. I mean, we've seen, some of the big four consulting companies have released 50 and 60-page documents on guidance for, return to work. And we will all be experiencing that in one way or another. And I'm very excited to hear about that. I'm also very excited to hear about how this may have changed the face of the workplace and the innovation that's going to come out of this experience. Because, there's nothing, better than some sort of crisis where someone is going to invent something really cool that we'll all start using, and it will just become a normal part of our lives. And it will come out of, hey, it was the pandemic of 2020 where someone thought this would be a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. So as we look at the agenda for InfoSec World, I want to walk through some of the of activities and then some of the tracks so we can let people know what's happening. I think from a leadership perspective, Paul and I have the Container Security Summit on Saturday, June 20th. Then on Sunday, the 21st, is the InfoSec Leadership Summit. And that's really the first opportunity, I think, for the leaders, the different C-levels to come together and talk. What is kind of the agenda for the summit itself?
Yeah. So one thing to just mention, even about the conference in general, is I think a benefit of InfoSec World is the fact that you can have teams go travel together, and you could have both the technologists, the very hands-on, as you talked about, container security. When you think about who's going to be executing that, and the very deep technical folks, then you also have these leadership tracks, and I'll go into what that summit is going to have in it. That is an opportunity for your team to travel together. Everyone from the leader, the director, the CEO, the CIO, to an analyst to travel together and potentially even take some of the workshops or go to some of the talks together, and then talk together afterwards to say, well, this is what I got out of that, and this is what I learned. And it's an opportunity for the teams to get on the same page and to make sure that there's an alignment. I think that's a real differentiator in this conference, because oftentimes you'll have someone that goes off to a deeply, deeply technical conference and they learn something cool, and there's nothing more that they want than to come back and actually apply what they've learned and implement something in the organization. But without that leadership buy-in, or without the alignment of what it can do inside of the organization for the overall strategy, that technologist, that analyst, that developer, engineer could experience, sort of a disheartening pushback that says, well, why do we actually need this? here we are at InfoSec World. You can have everyone discussing, hey, this is what I learned in this container security workshop. Here are some ideas. And the leaders can be there saying, you know what, you're right. This is something that we should align on. And so it's such a great opportunity for everyone inside of the team and inside of the organization that's in the space to travel together, to hear things, and maybe even do some of their own strategic alignment of what could I be doing over the next year, right? These are some of the goals and objectives that we could have. And maybe we do want to have an initiative around container security, but you get that alignment together at the event, which I think is just a really, really cool opportunity space. So yeah, you mentioned the leadership summit. So we have a big range of speakers. So it's not just one speaker. We have people from Aflac, from Oracle, from Cyber Leadership and Strategy Solutions. There's some, various speakers throughout, and so we're throughout the course of the day, and we're going to talk about things like how do you keep ahead of your competition, right? Or how do you actually align your business for where you want to be in your market space inside of your vertical? Things about how to construct the team and how to build a 5-year roadmap that aligns not only what you're looking for from a cybersecurity framework, but how does that align with the business objectives that you have for 5 years out? Of course, major topics that we always have in terms of leaders are metrics and a scorecard, right? How do you communicate what it is that your status today versus where you want to go and your progress along that? That is always such a hot topic because it's a matter of you being the cybersecurity leader and translating everything it is that your team is doing to be able to show, yeah, we are working towards the goals that we've set out. This is our progress, and making sure that the leadership inside of the company, if you have external stakeholders or shareholders, that you're able to communicate it effectively to them as well. And then there's even a side of the day that talks about just developing your own leadership capabilities. So thinking about how you exemplify yourself, tips and tricks on how you can do a better job of being a leader, and also talking about how can you grow to the next level. So if you're a CISO, a CIO, if you're a technical director, what are the things that you can do to provide a better balance to yourself? Maybe you came from the technical field and you really want to balance some of that business strategy. And so that the workshop will actually help you not only work with your teams, but also work on yourself as well. So it's a really, really good day.
Yeah. And Summer, correct me if I'm wrong, but reading through the agenda and the topics of the day, I looked at this from a perspective of I would love to invite my CFO to this, my CEO to this, because for me, it has a lot of leadership in business principles, and it aligns cybersecurity to it and risk to it, right? So for me, I would see benefit in inviting some of the other C-levels in my organization to this.
I think it's not only just for C-level and thinking about that. Absolutely. It could even be maybe people in your organization who you see as having potential to emerge as leaders as well. So you could have that very top level. Like I said, I think that value of this conference is absolutely that it touches on the technical side and the business side, and really gives teams that opportunity to align. I could see coming out of a week at InfoSec World where you have laid out not only a technical strategy, but a business strategy for your team for the next year, for the next 2 years. And so you could walk out of the week with something really, really tangible.
Now, are there specific requirements to register for the InfoSec Leadership Summit? How I don't know what level of pass or registration it requires. Is there a certain level you have to be able to attend that Sunday summit?
You know what? I actually don't know the details on all of that, if you have to actually have a certain credential or not. Based on what I've looked at in terms of registration, I don't think you have to, but I'll look into that and I can let you know.
Got it. Yeah, because I know a lot of people who will attend the event may or may not come down the weekend before. And if they do,
Right.
then this is a great opportunity for them potentially to attend the Leadership Summit, get some of that alignment with business and cybersecurity risk kind of together. I think it's a great way to spend the weekend if you're going to come down a little early. I just want to know if there were any hard requirements for attendance.
Absolutely. I haven't seen any hard requirements on the attendance there. I do know that for the most part, when I've attended in the past, it does tend to be the leadership circle. So, senior managers and above, which has been really, really good for me in terms of being able to just build those connections across the community.
Yeah. And then when we get into the normal conference, there is a management and leadership track dedicated to this, basically the same audience. Kind of give us an overview of what's in that management and leadership track on, I think it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the conference.
Yeah, I think that it kind of builds really nicely throughout the week, actually, as we go into the management and leadership tracks. As you noted, it's Monday, Tuesday, and then there's also a session on Wednesday. But it really talks across a lot of different factors, including even legal ramifications of cybersecurity. Again, we go into board of directors and measurement of cybersecurity programs. That is always something that's ever evolving in terms of communication with the board and being able to show the measurement strategies. There's a session actually that talks about a research survey that's done on the cybersecurity profession, which is a really nice place for folks that are in management and leadership to go to hear about how the field itself is evolving when it comes to cybersecurity research. What are the things that we've actually made progress on as a profession, as a field? And then you can also get information there on what's happening, for example, in the penetration testing area. Have we made any strides, and are there things that I should be looking for as an organization and reaching out to my vendor relationships to get the latest and greatest? There's also always a lot on how to bubble up the things that are most important from your cybersecurity program to communicate to the leaders. So communication strategies. And this is another area. If I were going to say two really important areas in the management and leadership, it's always metrics and communication. And we see that in studies and research time and time again. What makes a great cybersecurity leader? It's people who know what to do to align the cybersecurity program with the business strategy and how to communicate that. And so the 3 days of the actual program in this track focus heavily on those two areas.
Yeah, that's great. There's also some interesting keynotes. What are some of the keynotes that you kind of want to highlight for the leaders that are coming down? You've got some great keynote speakers coming in for the 3 days.
Oh yeah, really, really fantastic. And some of the folks that I've met and done even some talks with them. Jimmy Sanders, the head of information security at Netflix. He is just a really fantastic speaker, very engaging, and can talk a lot about some information security in a company that almost every single person who's there has had some level of interaction with. And then Jamil, who is at Equifax and previously at Home Depot. If there is anyone that you want to hear talk about how to manage through a crisis or an event, really think about two big companies in the US that have experienced major breaches between Home Depot and Equifax. And Jamil is who was brought into both of those programs to get the organizations not only to be able to respond to and handle those breaches, but to move forward. And so, taking advice from him on how to handle a crisis, how to work through it, how to move forward. I mean, two of the best speakers that I can imagine. I'm really excited myself even to hear more of what they have to say because, every time I hear them, I learn something new. There are also some folks from government. We have a retired senior executive from the CIA. And so that's always becomes really interesting just to hear about, what was the government doing? What is happening now? also that's important for the transition from government into private sector or vice versa. And so that's always something that attendees, I like them to be able to come and hear how other people have made those transitions. Maybe you're someone in the private sector and you're thinking, hey, I want to give back and do some public service. There's a lot of opportunity space at this event to meet people who have made similar transitions. And, as Paul said, you're sitting at a booth, you're sitting at a dinner, and you say, oh, I would be interested in that. And typically they'll be like, I know someone, they're here, let me make that introduction. And the event is really, really accessible in the sense that it's large enough that there's a lot of mix of people, but it's also small enough that you can make really, really good personal connections.
Yeah, it's a really I like the intimacy, right? It's not too big where you can actually, you could in theory kind of talk to everybody that's there, right? It's not so big that you can't have a conversation with pretty much everybody there in some form or fashion if you wanted to. I do like the format and the size of this event. It's big enough to have an impact, but it's small enough that you can actually make a lot of great connections and have a lot of great conversations.
Absolutely. And part of that, and I'll be speaking on the first day of the main conference. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about is building your personal board of directors. And InfoSec World is one of those places that you can actually, if you haven't already done that, you can do it. And this is a concept that I've learned from other great leaders like Colin Powell, General Powell. And how do you actually build your own personal board of directors so that if you have a question about something financial, if you have a question about something in the technical space, who is in your, I'll sound really old fashioned, but who's in your Rolodex that you can call? And who are those people that you've fostered relationships with that you can lean on them as subject matter experts in this space? InfoSec World is one of the best conferences to begin to build or to actually add to your personal board of directors.
That's a great suggestion. You always need to know where those mentors are when you need some help.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Paul, I took over most of this discussion. I didn't know if you or Jason had any other questions for Summer.
Hey, and
Summer,
Paul's on the leadership board as well. So
he is,
you can't beat it when he's on that.
We have so much fun. It's a lot of fun, especially going through all the talks and they're just helping set the direction of the conference. It's a lot of fun. It's a great group of people. I look forward to it every year.
Great.
We can't wait to get down to Florida. Summer, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Thanks, guys.
And with that, we'll take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.